For decades, Australia's economy has been the envy of the world, seemingly blessed with an endless supply of natural wealth. But what happens when that luck starts to run thin? Today, we're going to explore this huge shift for Australia, from a country that's been lucky to one that now needs to be good.
And really, this one sentence says it all. This isn't about forgetting the country's good fortune. It's about building something stronger on top of it. It's this idea that you can't just coast on your past wins forever and expect to stay ahead.
So to really get where Australia's heading, you gotta look back at how it got here. And the story starts with, well, a whole lot of fortune.
You know, this famous nickname, the lucky country? You'd think it's a compliment, right? But it actually wasn't. When author Donald Horne came up with it back in 1964, he was being critical. He was worried that all this prosperity, which was basically a gift from the ground, was making the country complacent and killing its drive to actually invent and create things.
And look, for a very long time, that luck was more than enough. I mean, we're talking about 3 straight decades of economic growth. That's an absolutely incredible run. This resource-fueled engine made Australia the second wealthiest country in the world when you look at median wealth. It was a winning formula for a while.
Which brings us to today. Because that old foundation, it's starting to show some pretty serious cracks. The old strategy of just digging stuff up and shipping it out isn't cutting it anymore.
And this isn't just a feeling, you know? The numbers are just wow. Commodity earnings are expected to fall by a staggering $271 billion just this year, and more drops are predicted after that. That is a massive, massive hole in the national income.
And here's where you really see the core of the problem. While that resource money is starting to dip, the money going into what's next, well, it's just not there. Australia spends only 1.7% of its GDP on research and development. The average for other advanced economies, 2.7%. That 1% difference is a huge innovation gap.
You know, former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull really hit the nail on the head. He said complacency is a killer. It's this dangerous mindset of thinking, we've always been fine, so we'll just keep being fine. That works right up until the moment it doesn't.
So what does this investment gap actually look like on the ground? It's not just some abstract number on a chart. Let's take a look at one company's story, because it tells you everything you need to know about this lost opportunity.
Okay, this quote from Michael Birku is just jaw-dropping. He's the CEO of a quantum tech startup called QCTRL, a total world leader in its field. And he says that when they went to raise money, a whopping 80% of it had to come from outside Australia. Out of 20 investors, only 3 were Australian. The money they needed to grow their world-class Aussie company just wasn't in Australia. And we're not talking about some small-time app here. QCTR is building critically important technology. They're making AI that helps things navigate when GPS is jammed or goes down. And that's a growing threat that already affects nearly 1,000 flights every single day. This is exactly the kind of future-defining tech that economies are built on.
And Biachuk makes it really clear, this has nothing to do with loyalty. It's about survival and economic reality. When you have a groundbreaking company, you're obligated to go where the money is. And right now, for Australia's innovators, the money is often somewhere else.
All right, so we've laid out the problem. The old luck is thinning, and new ideas are struggling to find funding at home. So what's the solution? Well, experts have a pretty clear 3-pronged strategy to build a good country.
It all boils down to these 3 big pillars. First, you have to create an environment that drives more investment. Second, you have to seriously supercharge innovation from the ground up. And third, you need to win the global war for talent. Sounds simple on paper, right? But each step needs real, deliberate action.
And history shows us this kind of push can work. You know, the level of investment today is about the same as it was back in the 90s. But in 2015, there was this big initiative, the National Innovation and Science Agenda, and it gave the tech sector a massive boost. The lesson is, these things work, but you can't just do it once and walk away. The call now is for another big, sustained effort.
So how do you actually get it done? The strategy is clear. Drive investment with a more competitive tax system and less red tape. Supercharge innovation by boosting funding for that pure, fundamental research that happens at universities. That's where the big breakthroughs come from. And win the war for talent with smarter migration, capitalizing on one of Australia's greatest assets, its incredible quality of life.
So, let's tie this all together. It's about a shift in mindset. The goal isn't to replace luck, but to learn how to make your own luck.
to become a country that is both good and lucky.
This slide really lays out the whole economic transition in a nutshell. It's moving from foundations of the past, iron ore, coal, natural resources, to the massive opportunities of the future, quantum technology, artificial intelligence, and pure research and development. It's a fundamental shift from an economy of extraction to an economy of invention.
And despite all the challenges, there is a strong sense of optimism. As Jennifer Westacott from KPMG points out, yeah, Australia's lucky, but it has a history of making its own luck too. The potential is there, the research base is strong, the country absolutely has the capacity to engineer its own prosperous future.
And this is the final, crucial takeaway. The goal isn't to stop being lucky. It's about being good as well as lucky. It's about building an innovation economy that creates a more resilient, more diversified, and more prosperous nation for everyone.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The pieces are all there. The strategy seems pretty clear, but the clock is ticking. The question for Australia isn't if it can innovate, but if it can do it fast enough. Can it make its own luck before the old luck finally runs out?